Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We are moving into the second to last video for Metalcore Week, and I have come upon a bit of a revelation. I've spoken with people in the community through Discord. I've been having conversations in the YouTube comments, trying to figure out what's going on with this metalcore confusion. I've mentioned in the past few episodes that what I thought was metalcore is not what we've been checking out this week. And I think I've kind of found the gem of knowledge of where my confusion stems from. So I've checked out some websites, I've talked with people, and it seems that in the early to mid 90s is when metalcore took off, with bands like Integrity, Earth Crisis, Converge, and a few others. And I'm kind of getting this idea that bands like Converge, like Born of Osiris, even like yesterday's Code of Orange, is kind of where metalcore started. Just heavy, metal, rhythmic, textural-oriented music. However, in the mid-2000s, moving into the 2010s, metalcore saw a lot of popularity with bands like Avenged Sevenfold, Killswitch Engage, Trivium, Bullet for My Valentine, Asking Alexandria, August Burns Red. That's the kind of metalcore I thought we were going to be checking out. Stuff that is heavy-ish, especially with the verse, but usually when we get to a chorus, we get some clean vocals in there. We kind of hit some more catchy elements to it, and it's this back and forth between some of the heavier aspects and some of the lighter, poppier, catchier parts. And that's what I thought we were in for. So I think that's my confusion, is that I'm getting more of an introduction to metalcore, which in itself is actually pretty cool. It's not what I was expecting, but I'm getting to see the origins of the genre instead, which, like I said, it's an interesting thing. It's not what I was expecting. I was kind of hoping to find more bands that I would have enjoyed. Metalcore was kind of a thing, of course, growing up as a teen, being into rock and metal. I enjoy metalcore, even though I kind of think it gets a lot of flack. But instead of finding a bunch of bands that I could add to my music library, I'm actually finding the origins to a genre that I've come to enjoy a lot over the years, which, while not the intended aspect of growing my library, it is pretty cool to see the beginnings. So this is Destrage. The song is Destroy, Create, Transform, Sublimate. And we're going to see where this one lands, whether this one leans more earlier or later into the more popular melodic era. All right. A little bit of dissonance in that line. Lots of heavy rhythmic work in the lower ends. Ooh. Oh man, kicking it with that groove. So it's a little all over the place. Got some really unusual rhythmic ideas, some really unusual melodic ideas.
Create Transform Sublimate. Take the reins, make your shit tango.
I like the live harmonies. Yeah. Really beautiful layering here with the vocal ahs and then the that guitar tapping on top of it. Nice synergy there rhythmically between the guitars and the drums. Again. Yeah, that was actually a clean transition, using space rather than a passage to transition through the spaces. Yeah. I like how this line is given room to breathe too. Wow. Yeah, what a shift. Yeah, there's that really big, heavy, low-end breakdown, working with rhythmic elements. I mean, this is a very cool section, but yeah, so they got some electronic aspects in here too, which is pretty cool. Do they have a live electronica guy, or? Alright. We got some bells in there. So, it's interesting because on some levels, that is more what I was expecting from this week's theme, but on other levels, I don't even know if I would call that metalcore just because of how many different aspects were in it that were really borrowing from other ideas. If there is a progressive metalcore, I think that's what I would call that. But there's just so many ideas popping up in there. So at the beginning, we had the tapping guitar intro into the heavy low end work with more rhythmic aspects, and we had the tapping over that. We had the screams come in on the verse, and then when the chorus came in, kind of lightened up a little bit. We saw some. Maybe it wasn't a chorus. Maybe that only did come in once. We had a couple of the. I think it was one or two of the guitarists doing some backup ahs underneath the vocalist who was singing, and then we had some synthesizer under that, and then we had the guitar tapping. and it was just a really gorgeous layered section. And I think what really made it come off even stronger is just because context. And context is important. I've talked about this a lot. When you juxtapose two different types of writing, they're going to amplify the impact of it. So if you have a song that's loud all the time, your listener's eventually going to adjust to that volume level and it's not going to be loud anymore. But if you have loud for a minute and then quiet for a minute and then you go back to the loud, the second time that you go, well, the time you return to the loud, it's going to be more impactful. It's going to feel bigger or even louder than the first section just because it was juxtaposed with the quieter section. So context is important for impact. Now, all this week, I have listened to very rhythmic oriented, lower register oriented music. Except for Born of Osiris. I think it was Born of Osiris. They had that guitar solo at the end. Otherwise, though, majority of what we've checked out has been lower end stuff. So my mindset coming into this was expecting a lot of lower end work with not a lot of melodic ideas over that. Not to mention that the section before this part was more of that rhythmic textural oriented stuff. We had that guitar tapping at the beginning of the song, but it didn't last too long, at least not when we got the vocals in. I think they kicked out after that. So for that whole section to come out with just this beautiful melody work, chord work, the layering, and like all the composition techniques I love in music, man, it hit so much harder than if I had listened to this back to back with some of the other metalcore I've been expecting this week. So, I talk about juxtaposition in the past about putting two parts of a song back to back to increase the impact of it. But honestly, context works in a lot of ways that even as a composer you can't control. If you're creating an album, you also want to think about how the songs work in order. Maybe some of your songs are softer than others, and you want a song to be very impactful that's heavier and louder, so you might want to juxtapose that with a softer song before it. But there's also other things in the listener's life, like this. This song, that section hit so much harder than if it had happened in a different week with some more similarly created music uh, leading up to it. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever really thought of that before. Usually, when I'm writing music, I think about the things I can control. Like I said, how the song flows, song composition, album ordering, stuff like that. But yeah, there's things you can't control, like the listener and what they've listened to around it, especially with things like Spotify and playlists, radio stations, not like local radio, but like Spotify radio, really changing the context of where songs sit, what plays next to them. It can really change how a song hits, which, I mean, on a listener side, I'm not going to say that that kind of power for the listener should be removed. There's definitely benefit in creating, jam CDs, playlist CDs. But at the same time, I believe that most music is created as an art form and it should be enjoyed as the complete work of art. So, yeah, I'm definitely pulled a little bit back and forth there as far as casual versus more intently, critically, artistically listening to music. I don't know. Little aside. Anyways, I've kind of walked away from the core conversation here of Destrage. Um, so yeah, they had that really cool layered section that just blew me away. That right there might have solidified some of my ideas about Destrage. I don't know. We'll see on a second song in the future, if they still hit like that. The song as a whole though is a wild composition. with several sections. We saw sort of a verse chorus thing going on at the beginning, but it didn't take long for them to step away from that and I think enter into a sort of rhapsody mode where we just had a string of unique compositional ideas and even timbres and textures and atmospheres. We entered into a like a 90s grungy feel for a second. And then we had that electronic outro, and they introduced a bunch of electronic instruments. We had that wide synth. We had the digital editing destruction. It's just a wild ride of a track. And so yeah, like I said, I'd kind of put these under some sort of progressive metalcore idea because, like I said, there is some ideas of metalcore in here. We see those heavy rhythmic, uh, 16, 30-second notes with spacing between the patterns themselves. We talked about this a little bit in Born of Osiris, where they might have, four notes and then a rest, and then three notes and a rest, and then six notes and a rest, and you get this sort of choppy gallopiness to it. But then when you view the whole pattern as a whole, the full 8-bar pattern or 4-bar pattern, whatever they're working with, there is a groove underlying all these disjointed rhythmic ideas. And then, of course, you have stuff like the drummer's snare and cymbal laying down more of a metronome feel to get a groove in there. So we have that element. We have the harsh vocals, which, speaking of the vocals, they were interesting. His high end fry was almost like a distorted clean, and it was a bit higher end in the range too. Is I don't know, just very unique. I'm not a vocal coach, so I can't really go much into that, but it caught me off guard. It was a very unique style of distorted delivery, and I don't think I've heard anything else like it. Um, I don't remember where I was going now. I went on that tangent about the vocalist. Ah, man. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that might be it for Destrage. This is the thing is it's kind of a dense song. Even just being 5 minutes, there's a lot going on in it. There's a lot of different ideas being utilized, and they're all kind of thrown together in a way that doesn't really make a lot of sense on a first listen. I'm sure that there might be some overarching ideas that pull it all together, but it does feel sort of like a just sort of like a progressive anything goes kitchen sink style of writing. Sort of like, what was that track? Answer the Sky. Just every few bars, just try something new. And you know what I was talking about is the metalcore. So yeah, this is metalcore at its roots, at least at the beginning. Like I said, the the heavy rhythmic aspects, sort of like the breakdown, and then you have your harsh vocals, but then they just have like electronica in there. They have some of this grungy aspects. They have some math rock aspects, or even some technical metal stuff thrown in there. So it really is all over the place. And as far as I'm concerned, it would take me another listen or two to really see what's going on in some of the more complex areas. But I do appreciate it. I like what's going on, even if some of the crazier, more progressive ideas didn't really stick to me so much. The core metalcore aspect for the first 2 minutes of the song or so had me hooked. And like I said, that chorus, I think it was, with the heavy layering was phenomenal, and I would like to see more of that. I also like how the singer tends to break into speech almost, entering into a bit of spoken poetry. I thought it was really effective at the end when the synths came in. Just this real big, booming, wide sections, wider than anything else. Even with the layering that we had seen earlier, it was still not as wide as this single synth sound, which just the engineering that goes into that is amazing. And then, of course, he's up there giving this big speech. Not sure what he said, but I mean, you can feel it. There's something definitely passionate about the way he said that with the music going on behind him. But the end of the song after that just didn't come together for me, unfortunately. So there's a lot of aspects in here that I enjoyed, even if I didn't enjoy the piece as a whole. But I think they're a very talented group of people, and I'm interested to see what else they've done. Also, it might just be that this was a song that finally fit what I was looking for in the week, at least to some degree. So, um, yeah, I mean, that definitely has something to do with my enjoyment of it. This is where you guys come in. Now, those are my thoughts on Destrage's Destroy, Create, Transform, Sublimate. Let me know what you thought, if you enjoyed it or not. And if you knew anything about that metalcore stuff I introduced the video with, um, or if maybe you learned something there, I mean, go ahead and drop comments like that as well. I'm very interested in sparking comments about that. It's I've mentioned before that genre is kind of useless in the larger scope of things, but at the same time, there's still this unnecessary urge to learn about it. I think it's really cool just to see how music evolves, maybe, and genre naming and genre evolution is part of that, part of how music evolves too. So I am definitely open to conversations about that. Above the comment section is a description box with some links for stuff adjacent to the channel, such as Discord, Patreon, Twitter, spreadsheets if you're interested in that. Just a bunch of links in there. You can also like, subscribe, ring the bell. All three of those things help out the channel immensely. I'll be back tomorrow for the final metalcore episode of the week, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.